Have you ever walked beneath a sky so vast, it felt like it could swallow your name? Have you felt the hush of a wind that touches nothing but still seems to know you? There are places in the world where time doesn't pass, but simply waits. And there, beneath the hush of stars and the breath of dunes, something stirs. Not a beast, not a man, not a god, but a flame with a shadow, a voice with no face, a story older than stories. Tonight, we walk with Malik. He was not a king, nor a hero. He was a wanderer, with no destination, a soul carved by silence, drawn into the heart of Arabia's empty quarter. The Rub al-Khalay, as if by a thread spun from forgotten dreams. He carried only water, a curved blade, and a story of his people passed from his mother's lips to his ears, and now fading like ink in sun. His tribe had once lived near the desert's edge, tending goats, gathering dates and whispering warnings into the dusk about creatures that watched from beyond the dunes. But war came, then hunger, then wind. All were gone now. Only Malik remained, walking through sand that whispered, sand that shifted in shapes not made by wind. Each night, the moon rode high and pale over the sea of dunes, and each night he felt her, something, watching. It was on the seventh day when he found the stone. It stood alone in a valley of sand waves, half buried and hot to the touch. Though the sun had not yet risen, it bore markings, spirals, eyes, and flame, all etched, not with chisel, but with something older. He set his hand upon it, and the wind stilled. From behind him, a voice spoke, not loud, not soft, but as if it had been waiting beneath his own breath. "You are not the first to call me," it said. He turned. There she stood, Ashara. She wore the shape of a woman, tall, cloaked in rippling black silk that shimmered like heat itself. Her skin was bronze gold, but her eyes, oh, her eyes were bottomless and still, like obsidian underwater. Malik did not speak, not out of fear, but reverence. The tales had said the Djinn were fireborn, spirit-shaped. They could take what they wished. But sometimes, they gave. She studied him as one might a child's drawing, not unkind, not curious, simply, with deep, ancient silence. "I have waited for someone without desire," she said, "and yet you come with longing." "I seek a name," Malik whispered. "Whose name?" "My people's," he replied. "They are gone, and I am forgetting them." Ashara tilted her head. "A name is a fragile thing," she said. "It can be burned, buried, bought, or traded." He said nothing. The wind curled around her feet like a serpent made of ash. "I can give you back your memory," she said. "Not as it was, but as it might have been." He stepped forward. "But there is a price." He nodded. "I have nothing." "Oh," she whispered, her smile colder than night. "You have everything." She raised her hand and touched his forehead. The sky darkened, the air thickened, and Malik's breath was pulled from him, not with force but with gentleness, as if he were being emptied to be made full again. He saw a village of tents fluttering like wings, children laughing beside date palms, a woman stirring lentils, her voice weaving song into the air, fires burning without smoke, names whispered like prayers, fathers and sons binding stories into cloth, a baby's first word, a funeral sung beneath a crescent moon. But the images were wrong, brighter than memory, softer than truth. It was not his past, it was the dream of one. He opened his eyes. Ashara was gone, only the stone remained. Now cool, Malik walked away. The desert had not changed. The dunes still rolled like waves, but he left no footprints, none at all. And behind him, far behind, a laugh echoed. Or was it the wind? That night, as he slept beneath a sky littered with silver breath, Malik dreamed, but the dream did not belong to him. He heard names he did not recognize, and loved them. He saw faces he had never touched, and mourned them. He held a child who did not exist, and whispered lullabies. In the morning he remembered nothing but warmth, and a single word carved into his heart, like fire across sand. Ashara. They say some Djinn take souls, some give riches, and some, they say, leave only stories behind. But Malik never returned. No bone, no blade, no cloth. Only a tale passed from mouth to mouth, fire to fire, across Arabia's long breathless nights. But the sand holds more than shadows. It holds ruins, where once there was fire. They say there was once a city so radiant, its towers pierced the sky like fingers of fire, and its streets bled with gold dust. A city built not with stone, but with arrogance. That city was Uba. Have you ever dreamed of a place you cannot remember? Have you woken with salt in your eyes and sand beneath your skin, but no footprints behind you? Uba. The name itself is a ghost. The Bedouins speak of it in hushes, never full voice, a city of perfection lost to pride. A jewel swallowed by the sands. The Atlantis of the Rub al-Khali, but it was not always lost. And there are those who still go searching. This is the tale of Saida, the last-born daughter of a spice merchant, and the one who followed the map etched in bone and sealed in wax. Her father had once vanished chasing the wind, whispering Uba's name in fevered sleep. She was a child then, just old enough to carry water, just young enough to believe he'd return. He did not. Only his ring came back, crusted in dust, heavy with heat. Years passed, and silence grew like vines in the corners of her home, until one night an old man came knocking, blind, rag-wrapped, half-ash in voice. He gave her a scroll. "I owed him this," he said. "Your father. He saved my life once. Now I return what was his." And then he left. The scroll bore no words, only strange curves and burned lines, shapes that shimmered in the lamp's light like breathing ink. It smelled of myrrh and something older. Her mother begged her not to follow. But Saida had never been one to live in houses. She belonged to the fire and the wind. Within days, she had joined a caravan bound for the deeper sands. They thought her mad. A woman with no husband, no title, no tribe, only a parchment that the sun refused to fade. But she had coin and conviction. So they went. Days turned to nights. Nights turned to silence. The desert grew louder with abs. One by one, the caravan's camels refused to walk. Water ran low. Maps were torn. And still, she pressed forward, following a trail no eye could see. Then, one twilight, it appeared. Not in light, but in stillness. The horizon shifted. Dunes fell away, and the bones of towers emerged, bathed in the hush of starlight. Uba. She dismounted and walked, slow as prayer, toward the city that should not be. What remained was ruin, but not of time, of punishment. The streets were too wide, the doors too narrow. It was as if the city had never been meant for human feet. Columns rose from cracked marble, inscribed with spirals like those found on ancient bones. Pools of black water lay still, untouched by wind, and in the center, a dome, broken like a skull. Saida entered. The air changed. It did not warm, did not cool. It remembered. She descended steps not carved by hand, but melted into shape. Below, a chamber, circular. In the center, a pillar of salt. No torch, no lamp, but everything was lit. And on the wall, a name. Her father's, not etched, not painted, grown. It pulsed with heat. She touched it, and the dome sang. A hum, so low it trembled her bones. Images, sounds, voices in languages never spoken by living mouths. The city had once bargained, not with men, with the sky. It gave offerings of incense, flesh, and song. It was granted prosperity, rain, wealth, time. But then, it asked for eternity. And eternity does not forget betrayal. She saw them, the builders of Uba, turning from the sky, binding spirits in wells, feeding fire not with wood but with names. And the sand came, not as storm, but as silence. It rose, not from without, but within. The city sank into its own shadow. Saida wept, not for Uba, for her father who had stood in that same place, seen that same vision, and given his name to the salt. She placed her hand upon the pillar, not to join, to remember. When she emerged, the city had changed, not visibly, but deeply. She knew she must leave before the forgetting took hold. By dusk she was gone. The desert sealed itself again. The sands whispered over stone, burying the towers like old teeth. She returned alone, never told the tale, never married. She became a weaver of blankets, and those who slept under her cloth said they dreamed of silver cities and towers that hum. When she died, the only thing found in her hand was the scroll, still unburnt, still warm. It is said, if you walk far enough and you are not greedy, Uba may find you. But beware, do not ask for forever, because the sand remembers, and eternity is not kind. But deeper still, where even the ruins sleep, there burns a flame that never dies. Have you ever seen fire that casts no shadow? Have you felt warmth without heat, light that touches the skin but not the air? There is a flame in the heart of the desert, they say, that has never died. Not once, not when rain fell, not when men wept, not even when silence covered the earth like a burial cloth. This is the story of that flame and the city that held it, Iram, city of pillars, crowned with domes of copper and pearl, a jewel strung into the black throat of the empty quarter. It stood for 1,000 years, they said, untouched by time, unbent by wind, and in its heart, the eternal flame, not built by men, but called, drawn from a place older than soil, deeper than stars. Its fire never consumed. It warmed without burning. It danced but never crackled. They said it was the breath of a god, or the last sigh of the world before creation. No matter the tale, it was there, always, and it kept Iram alive. But nothing given is ever free. The king who ruled Iram was named Kaid. He was tall and slender, and his crown was carved of black stone pulled from beneath the sea. He had no children, no queen, only the flame. Each night he walked alone through the halls of Iram, speaking to it, whispering into its golden breath. "What do you see?" he once asked. The flame did not answer, but it flickered, and in the light he saw not his reflection, but something other. Eyes, a smile, a hand, reaching through memory. He began to dream. In his sleep, voices spoke a language with no vowels. He awoke with blood beneath his fingernails, and could not say why. Still, the city flourished. No crops failed, no wells ran dry, and not a single child died before their time. But no songs were sung, no lovers kissed in the streets, no laughter echoed in the baths. For the flame required silence, and silence it was given. Then, one dusk, a stranger arrived. A woman wrapped in indigo silk, her eyes milk-white with blindness, her hands bare. She carried no staff, no pack, no water, only a small brass bell on a string of leather. She came to the flame. The guards tried to stop her, but she walked past them as if through mist. She stood before the fire, unmoved. Then, softly, she sang. One note, not a melody, not a word, just a breath, shaped into sound, and the flame trembled. It rose high, taller than towers. It roared, though no wind moved, and for the first time since its birth, it cast a shadow. Kaid ran to the chamber. He shouted. He commanded, but his voice was as straw in a storm. The woman turned. Her eyes met his blind, and yet piercing. "Your city is beautiful," she said, "but beauty without sorrow is not life." and life without song is not love. He fell to his knees. The fire bent low, wrapped around him like a cloak, and Iram, once immortal, began to burn, but not to ash, to memory. Its towers melted into light, its streets folded like parchment, its pillars sighed, and the earth swallowed them whole. When the fire died down, only sand remained, and silence, but not the same silence as before. This was a silence after sound, a silence that had listened. The woman was gone, so was Kaid, so was Iram. But sometimes, in the heart of the empty quarter just after dusk, a traveler may glimpse a flicker on the horizon, a fire that needs no fuel, that gives no heat, and casts no shadow. They say it's still listening. They say it remembers the note, and if you sing not a song but truth, it may sing back. But beware, for fire cannot love, it can only burn. And yet beyond even Iram, in a canyon carved by wind and grief, a shadow waits still. Have you ever wandered into silence so deep it felt like falling into a well with no bottom? Have you heard the hush of sorrow, not loud, not broken, just eternal? There is a place in the empty quarter where no echo dares return. The dunes there curve like sleeping beasts, and the wind moves only sideways as if afraid to disturb something buried far below. The Bedouins know this place. They do not name it. They turn their camels before they near it. They speak of a presence, not cruel, not kind, but weeping. This is the story of Zalra, the Djinn, who loved, and who was left behind. She was once wild, a fire daughter of the desert, born not of flesh, but of smoke and starlight. She danced through heat waves and spoke the names of clouds. The dunes shifted beneath her touch. Mirages obeyed her command. But all that changed when she met the scribe. His name was Harun, and he walked the desert not with weapons, but with parchment and ink. He sought not treasure, but truth, myths, names, fragments of ancient breath. One night, as the wind stilled and stars pressed close, Harun found a shadow beside his fire. Zalra. She did not speak, neither did he. They simply sat, man and Djinn, ink-bearer and flame-born, watching the coals crackle. The next night, she returned, and again, and again. Each evening Harun read aloud his findings. He spoke of lost cities, buried temples, songs etched into bone. And Zalra listened. It was not long before she began to answer. At first in gestures, then words, then stories no man had heard for 1,000 years. Tales only fire remembered. They fell into rhythm. Not love as humans know it, no vows, no touch, no promise, but something deeper, a shared silence. But love, in whatever form it takes, always calls attention. Other Djinn noticed. They warned Zalra. To bind herself to a mortal was to tempt erasure. For Djinn are of breath and ember. Humans are of dust. Still, she stayed. And Harun, with trembling hands, wrote her name. Not on parchment, not on stone, in a book of sacred scripture where no Djinn had ever been invited, where words lived forever. He meant it as devotion, but to write a spirit's name in holy ink is to bind it. The next morning she could not rise. Her form dimmed. The wind no longer obeyed. She became still, trapped between breath and silence. She wept, but not with tears, with glass. Clear beads fell from her eyes, each humming with the note of her true name. They scattered across the sand, bright as fallen stars. Harun realized his mistake too late. He begged the skies for mercy. He tore the page from his book. He burned it, but the ink had already remembered. Zalra, now tethered, could not leave, not truly, not fully. She faded, not into nothing, into memory, and the canyon where she last stood became still. The wind grew wary. Even the sun dimmed. No creature lives there now. No water flows. Only the glass beads remain, cold to the touch, faintly singing, too perfect to be of this world. They say if you find one and listen closely, you can hear her weeping still, not with pain, not with rage, but with longing. For names are powerful, and sometimes love writes too deeply. But the desert is not all sorrow. Some stories are born in laughter, though their endings may ache. Have you ever seen a place that doesn't cast a shadow? A city that vanishes when the sun rises and returns only when the moon rides high. They say such a city lives behind the veils of the empty quarter. It cannot be found by compass or map. It cannot be remembered once you leave it. But once, just once, there was a boy who found it, and whose memory never forgot. His name was Harith. He was neither brave nor clever, just kind. He carried silence like a second skin, and wore his worry gently, like a woven sash. His sister was dying. No healer could name the illness. No water could quench it. No coin could drive it away. But in her dreams she spoke of a feather, silver, floating, calling, and one night, under a violet moon, Harith saw it, not in sleep, in waking. A single feather, glowing faintly, tumbling against the wind as if tied to something unseen. He followed it, not knowing why, not caring how far. The dunes swallowed his footprints. The stars blinked out one by one. And then, suddenly, stillness. He stood on the threshold of a city made of curves and shimmer. Its buildings were not built, but sculpted by moonlight itself, it seemed. The walls moved slightly, like breath. Its gates were made of shadow lace, and no sound passed the boundary, save for the soft chiming of wind over glass. No guards, no lock. But he knew he could only enter once. So he stepped through. Inside, people moved like dancers, their eyes silvered, their feet bare. They did not speak. They only watched. And yet he felt welcome, as if the city had been waiting only for him. At the center stood a tall structure, shaped like a tree of mirrors. Reflections twisted along its branches, each showing moments not of the present, but of dreams. A woman emerged, neither old nor young. Her skin was the color of dusk. Her cloak shimmered with script that rewrote itself. "You seek a story," she said. Harith nodded. "For your sister." He nodded again. "A true story can heal," she whispered. "But every story has a price." He reached for the pouch at his side. She shook her head. "No coin, no gold, not here. We are the dream thieves. We deal in memory, in shadow." He swallowed. "What do you want?" "Your shadow," she said. He blinked. "If you give it," she explained, "you will still walk, still sleep, still live. But you will never again know which dreams are yours. You will remember stories that are not yours to carry. You may wake with names on your tongue that no living soul has spoken for 1,000 years." Harith thought of his sister, of her thin breaths, of her quiet smile. He nodded. "So be it." She reached out and touched his shoulder, and his shadow lifted, rose, curled, and dissolved into the mirrors. He gasped, but he did not fall. Instead, a soft thread of light emerged from the mirrored tree, drifting into his chest, like a seed carried by wind. "Go now," the woman said, "before dawn remembers." He turned. As he stepped through the gates, the city blurred, its shape folded inward. Its light shimmered into sky. And then, gone. He woke at the edge of his village. The silver feather was gone. His hands were warm. When he reached his home, his sister was already sitting up, her cheeks flushed with color, her breath steady. "I had the strangest dream," she said, smiling. "I walked through a garden of mirrors, and someone was singing." Harith smiled, but he did not answer. That night, he dreamed, and in his dream he stood before a river of stars. A woman wept beneath a mirrored sky, and a tower spoke in riddles. Each night after, The dreams returned. He saw wars that never happened, lovers who never kissed, temples that never fell. He carried them like stones in his soul, but he never told anyone. Only once, when his sister married and had a child, she asked, "Why do you always look at the moon like that?" And he replied, "Because some cities only live in its light." And so it is. One final tale must be told before the hush takes you fully. Have you ever listened to silence that didn't feel empty, but full? So full it felt like breath held by the world itself, waiting, watching, remembering. There is a story that is not written, not spoken, not even dreamed. It is the story the desert tells to itself when no one is near. The last story. The first breath. Long before men walked with names, before tents were sown or fires lit. The empty quarter was not empty at all. It breathed. It pulsed with unseen rivers. It sang with voices of wind and sand, twining through the bones of the earth. It was not cruel. It was not kind. It simply was. And in its center lived a wind, not a storm, not a gust, but a spirit made of hush and motion. She was called Al-Nasima, the soft one. No form, no face, but her breath stirred seeds into bloom, carved valleys with patience, shaped dunes like lullabies. She loved without being seen. She carried the scent of myrrh, of cooling stone, of water not yet found. She whispered to the sleeping beasts. She danced with the stars. She hummed to the sand until it curled like silk. And all the while, she watched the coming of people. At first, they were few, gentle, dream-led. They built with care, walked in silence, gave thanks to the wind. They named her not as goddess or ghost, but as kin. But time does not stay gentle. New men came, harder, louder. They carved stone with blades. They shouted into sky. They lit fires not for warmth, but for conquest. They did not hear Al-Nasima, or if they did, they called her superstition. They raised cities that defied the horizon, towers that pierced sky's belly, temples made not for praise, but power. And still, she breathed. She flowed around their walls. She kissed their children's brows. She softened their tents with moonlight. But the louder they grew, the quieter she became. One day, a gate was built of iron, tall and sealed, unmoved by wind. Al-Nasima touched it and turned away. Her breath withdrew. The desert stilled. No more blooming flowers in the night. No more humming sands. Only heat. Only weight. Years passed. The cities crumbled. The towers sank. People fled. Some in fear, some in forgetting. But a few remembered. They sat at the edge of the dunes and listened, and one night, as the moon bowed low, they heard it. A sigh, faint, old, familiar. Al-Nasima had returned, not to reclaim, not to punish, but to remind. She passed through the ruins like a prayer unspoken. She curled through bones, through broken wells, through crumbled walls. She did not ask to be worshipped. She only asked to be heard. And so the last breath of the desert was not one of ending, but of being. Even now, if you lie still enough beneath the stars and place your ear to the sand, you might hear, not in words, not in wind, but in the silence between. She is still there, not watching, not waiting, just being. And she remembers you, even if you do not remember her. So sleep now. Let the dunes fold over your thoughts. Let the breath of the world carry you. You are not alone. You never were.